I just want to stay competitive. That's what I consistently hear from small business owners I talk to. They all say some version of the same thing, and I get it. But the interesting thing is, when I ask them what staying competitive actually means, what they usually describe to me is chasing. They're chasing the latest platform. They're chasing whatever their competitor is doing. They're chasing whatever some influencer just told them is absolutely essential for their business. And I think that's where we've gotten this thing a little bit backwards because staying competitive doesn't mean chasing, it means building. This episode is delivered by my AI avatar. I wrote the script, I reviewed it, and I approved it. Same thinking, same framework, same move worth. I use this technology so I can spend my time diagnosing real business problems instead of sitting in front of a camera. Here's what the digital industry will tell you being competitive looks like. You need to be on every social platform. You need AI, you need automation, you need video content, you need a mobile app, you need to be running ads, you need influencer partnerships, and of course, you need to scale. But if you're a five-person accounting firm, or you're a nonprofit with two full-time staff members, or maybe you're running a family restaurant and you're just trying to get through a slow season, that list doesn't feel like opportunity. It feels like you're drowning. And there's a reason for that. That definition of competitive wasn't really designed for you. It was designed for funded startups. It was designed for enterprise companies that have entire marketing departments. Main Street operates under a completely different set of constraints, different margins, different realities. So the way we define competitive for Main Street has to reflect that. There's a pattern I see in almost every small business I work with. They have the tools, they have the subscriptions. What they don't have is connection. The website doesn't feed the CRM. The CRM doesn't trigger follow ups. The follow ups aren't tracked. And reporting, it's a guessing game. That's Dusty Digital, not because the tools are bad, but because nobody wired them together. The fix isn't more tools, it's better structure. Let's keep going. If you're operating a small business and you've got limited staff, limited budget, and what feels like unlimited responsibilities, staying competitive is not about doing more. It's about doing the right things and in the right order and making sure those things actually work. So let me tell you what competitive actually looks like for a small business on Main Street. It's not having the flashiest website, it's not having the most followers, and it's not having the latest AI integration. Competitive means your leads don't fall through the cracks. It means your systems are documented so your team can actually operate without you having to hover over everything they do. It means your CRM is configured properly. And just as importantly, somebody is actually using it. It means you can look at your numbers, you know your traffic, you know your leads, you know your cost per acquisition. And it means that when growth comes, your infrastructure can actually handle it. That's competitive for Main Street. It's not glamorous, but it is durable. And durability is what separates the businesses that are still around years from now from the businesses that burn bright for a little while and then flame out. At MoveWorth, we have a principle that really guides everything we do. We call it systems before growth. And the idea is pretty straightforward. You don't scale something you haven't stabilized, you don't amplify something you haven't structured, and you don't grow something you don't understand. Think about what happens when a business has fragmented systems and suddenly gets a surge of new customers. The website can't handle the load, leads start coming in and nobody really knows who's responsible for following up with them. The CRM is a mess, so nothing is being tracked properly. Invoicing starts falling behind, communication starts breaking down, and all of a sudden, the growth that was supposed to be the reward becomes the punishment. I've seen this happen. A business gets a great opportunity. Maybe it's a big client. Maybe they get a media mention. Maybe they run a campaign that really works, but they can't capitalize on the opportunity because the infrastructure underneath the business simply wasn't ready for it. That's not a marketing failure. That's a systems failure. Systems before growth means you get the plumbing right before you turn on the water. And you document your processes before you hire the next person. You configure your CRM before you start running ads. You make sure the infrastructure of the business can actually handle what's coming before you invite more of it in. And that's not slow, that's smart. And over time, it's actually the fastest path to sustainable growth. Now, there's another piece of this that I think is really important. When you look at one of your competitors and it seems like they have everything figured out, you have to remember something. You're seeing their front of house, you're not seeing their back of house. You see the website, you see the ads, you see what they're posting on social media. What you don't see is whether their CRM is a complete mess. You don't see whether their team is burning out. You don't know whether all of that growth is actually profitable or whether they're just busy. And comparing the back of house of your business to the front of house of somebody else's business is a losing game. You're always going to feel behind because you're comparing your reality to their performance. That's not a fair comparison. And more importantly, it's not useful. The businesses that win over 5 years and 10 years aren't necessarily the ones with the flashiest presence. They're the businesses with the most structured operations. They know their numbers, their processes are documented, their team knows how to execute without the founder having to supervise every single step. That's what competitive actually looks like behind the scenes. Now, I'm not saying you should ignore your competition. You absolutely need to know your market. But knowing your market and chasing your market are two completely different things. If you're making decisions because of what your competitor just posted or because of some new tool they're advertising that they use, then you're operating reactively. And a reactive business is always going to be one step behind. The goal is to become proactive. Build infrastructure that works regardless of what anybody else is doing. Create systems that work when business is slow, and those same systems still work when business is booming. That's real competitive advantage, and it comes from structure, not speed. So there are a few things I want you to do. First, write down your cost per lead. And if you don't know what your cost per lead is, find out. Look at what you spent on marketing last month and divide that number by the number of new leads you received. That one number will tell you more about how competitive your business actually is than just about any competitor analysis ever will. Then I want you to look at your CRM. And I don't mean look at the software, look at the actual data inside of it. Are your leads tagged properly? Are follow-up tasks assigned? Is your pipeline actually moving? Because if your CRM is empty or if it's disorganized, that's your first priority. Not ads, not AI, your CRM. And stop making digital decisions based on what your competitors are doing. Their business is not your business. Their constraints are not your constraints. You need to build for your operation, not theirs. And here's the question I really want you to think about. If your business doubled in size tomorrow, would your systems hold? Would your team know what to do? Would your processes actually scale with the business, or would everything start to collapse? And if your answer is, I'm not sure, that's a signal. It means growth is coming. And right now you have a window to prepare for it. So when we talk about staying competitive on Main Street, we're not talking about chasing. We're talking about building. Systems before growth, structure before speed, clarity before complexity. That's the playbook. And in the episodes ahead, we're going to show you exactly how to run it. We'll talk soon. Your digital infrastructure is the plumbing behind the walls, invisible when it works, catastrophic when it doesn't. Give us a like for the YouTube algorithm and go ahead and subscribe now. Every episode, we break down how to get it right, structured, stable, built to last.